I think with the Bleachers album gone now, the fan, I like to interact mostly with a lot of the serious stuff, because I see the shows as like a big celebration of the all those emotions, but the record is pretty intense and a lot about grief and loss. So that's all songwriting is you write songs because you feel alone. No one ever wrote songs because they feel so included. So maybe it's a overly poetic or beautiful way to look at social media, but if I send something out there into the world for a song I write from this little hole, and then someone says, "Oh, I feel that way too," it's really nice to be able to talk with people and feel less alone.
Yeah, and have they shared their own experiences with you?
Yeah, people are very forthcoming with their experiences, but it's like a conversation. You sit down with someone, you give them surface, you're going to get surface back. Songwriting's no different. If you tell somebody very serious things that have affected you, you've been through real emotions you have, you're going to get real quality from them too. I feel that way about the show, the records, all of it. Life's a bit too short to me to, keep it too surface. I might be happier if I did, though.
What about, you just describe your shows as being a bit of a big celebration. You're playing the VMA pre-show with Bleachers. Is that like kind of the vibe that you try to go for when you do something, some event like that?
Yeah, every show is a celebration, whether it's club show, arena, VMA pre-show, any of it. The fact that the songs can be very intense and serious, that's for people to figure out later on headphones. But when we play, it's screw it, the world's falling apart. This is the only thing that matters. Even before the world was falling apart, I used to think that way.
Yeah, for sure. And is that part of the reason why you have two drummers to do like a super big sound?
The two drummers play into that. I mean, I'm from New Jersey. I think that's part of the culture of New Jersey music, or rather like non-city music. It's big and it's bombastic and it's all, two drummers and this whole band, saxophones, that stuff you think of in your head when you're writing songs alone in a room. So I like the show to be like almost like a dream state.
And that is basically what we see on stage is kind of what starts in your head, and then we see the physicalization of it, like on stage and however you make that happen.
Yeah, everything that happens on stage starts with an idea. Like, what if there were two drummers? What if there was horns? What if there were these walls of synth? And then you set yourself, big absurd ideas, and then you try to make them real. It's a long road to get there, to get a band like this playing really tight and in sync because there's so much happening. And then when you get there, you're very focused on it. And every once in a while, you'll have a show or a moment, and you'll kind of look around and be like, oh, this was a bit of a big idea that actually is happening.
Right. And so to kind of play off of that, it's like think about big ideas. Lorde is also performing at the show, and she's up for Artist of the Year. Did you think when you both started working on this album, kind of at your home studio in Brooklyn, as she's talked about, that this was kind of like, in terms of the reaction to it and how big the album has been, did you anticipate that when you first started working on the record with her?
I don't anticipate any reaction when I work on records, whether it's something that it got as big as melodrama or a demo that never comes out. I think you look for a personal reaction. If it does something to you, it might do something to other people too. But trying to make it do something for people is pretty fruitless task.
So then how do you start building songs with somebody, just in terms of ideas?
Building songs is just feelings. It's like you just mess around. You might talk references, but more and more I like talking ideas over references, just like feelings. This is big, this is exciting, this is sad, this is an intimate sound, whatever it is, just so you can just start noodling around with chords. But sometimes, whether I'm working with someone else or making Bleachers records, it's often just you touch something, you hit something, you make some sound, and it just sets you on a path to other sounds, to other ideas, other lyrics. Oh, I have this lyric, my hat's on fire, not a real lyric, but and then that leads to, it's just, you never know what's going to take you there, so you just start. And that's almost like being in therapy, how it's like, first time you go to therapy, you're like, I don't know, I'm fine, and then by your 100th visit, you're like, and then this, you just, that part's the muscle. Can't plan writing, but you can plan to try.
What's some of the stuff that you've taken away from those sessions, writing with other people and for other people, that you then now use in Bleachers songs or whatever other projects you're working on your own?
I learn a lot when I work with other people. I feel like I constantly relearn to be open. It's very easy to be like, I told that story, now I'm going to close up shop and try something new. But, often, which is something I relearned from working with other artists, these monumental things happen in our lives, and then we just sort of revisit them for years and years. And there's many songs in one circumstance. One breakup, one bad night, one great night could be 50 songs throughout an artist's career. You just don't know. So I definitely learned from other artists to not give up on the other angles of things that have happened.
Do you think because you never stop working, but there's 3-year gap in between different Bleachers albums, do you feel like this new one, Gone Now, is in any way more informed by some stuff that you have picked up from working with other artists specifically?
I don't know what is informed the new Bleachers album. I don't know if it's work I've done with other people or time. I just know I was ready to make it, which is that's the tipping point for anything, you know, because you could write till you're blue in the face, but if you're not ready to make something or say something, it won't come out. But I don't know. When I'm making a record, I don't know much. I kind of get to understand it in real time with people, because it's almost like that scene in Old School when Will Ferrell blacks out, and then he's like says the answer perfectly correctly, and then he's like, "What'd I say?" That to me is like I think that's what like making a record is, but for 2 years. And you wake up and you're like, "What happened?" And then we're all listening, and you're like, "Oh, I guess I was talking about that." You start to see it. It's like looking at a picture of yourself from the past. You're just like, you see it. You're like, "Oh, you were this, you were that, you were good at this, you were bad at that." So I'm experiencing it right now with everybody.
And then you have to go out and relive those memories that you might not even remember about how you made it on the road.
Well, yeah, but I've changed my perspective on. I used to think that reliving the memories and touring behind an album could be continuously damaging, and now I see it as a celebration. Get a bunch of people in a room, and you know, sometimes you have a good time at a funeral, sometimes you have a good time at a bar mitzvah. There's all different kinds of celebrations, and gathering a bunch of people that all care about a body of work. I care, they care, that we're there to celebrate it. Cry to it when you're alone.
You've also talked about how it was a little weird at first when you started songwriting and stuff for working with some other artists, about like it was weird to kind of get that started. Why was it weird at first, and does it still feel weird to you now, or how have you overcome that?
Well, songwriting is a weird thing. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to just put yourself in the position and say things that might stop your day. And to do that with someone else was equally as bizarre. It's super intimate, so yeah, I always say that you can't really learn or prepare or figure out songwriting, but you can get pretty good at not caring or being embarrassed. I have a friend who says, "Dare to suck." I think that's a nice thing to say.
I wanted to also ask about, I think I read something that said, where you were characterizing your hobby as music, and you don't necessarily have other hobbies outside of music. Like if you were working on one project to kind of maybe get into a different headspace, you start working on another project. Do you think there'll ever be a time where like you pick up something really random, like you start fixing old antique clocks or something, or marine biology in an amateur way?
I don't know what I would do outside of music, but I've shifted a lot in my life. I used to only care about collecting stamps, then only skateboarding, and then only, you know, baseball cards, and then music started. The music thing has been a while now, but I think that it's not worth doing anything unless it's the only thing you want to be doing. You know, I mean, in a perfect world, there's a lot of things we have to do to survive, but at this moment, I really am interested only in making music, so I think it's worth putting out there. If I ever don't feel that way, then I'll start to, you know, build a ship in a bottle or whatever it is.
Right. Speaking of sort of
whittle
music,
a bong.
Right. Whatever the preferred hobby ends up being.
Whittle a bong, whittle a gun. You know, just whittle nunchucks. Whittle myself a small. You can cut this part.
So is it possible though that we could enter like a room many years from now and you'll just have an entire room of whittled things that you?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's possible that. I don't think anything's an endless well. I don't think I don't think you just do something and you're good at it and that's that. I think you go in these waves and you feel it for a minute, then you lose it and you feel it. So I'd be interested to know what's next for me, because I don't know.
I was going to ask too, I mean, we were talking about music being all-encompassing. You also appeared in the Charli XCX video for Boys, which was like...
I like that video.
The most awesome video. You were kind of on this bench, like, you know, you were a little sweaty.
Well, Charli called me and she said, "Do you want to be in a pink coffin or lift pink weights?" And I said, "I want to be in a pink coffin." And she said, "Great." And then she called me 2 days later. She's like, "The coffin's out." I was like, "Okay, I'll lift weights." But I said, if I lift weights, then you got to really grease me up good. So Charli did that whole video. Like, she was directing it and doing everything. She put the baby oil on me. You know, she knows what she wants to do. So I just lifted the weights.
So she actually applied the baby oil?
She applied the baby oil on me.
That's like really down.
I'd let her do it again.
I was going to ask you if you could have picked another activity to be doing besides the comedy. Like if she said you can name whatever you want to be doing in that video.
If she said name whatever you want, I think she did. I think I said boxing. I'm still interested in making a boxing video because I like how the pants sit high, and I think it makes the body look nice. But then I went coffin and then dumbbells.
Right. I was also going to ask about, let's kind of go back to your process of songwriting and the way you kind of have to empty your brain when you're putting all this stuff into your music. Does that ever get exhausting? Because you kind of have to empty it out.
Yeah, digging deep to write is very exhausting. I think that's why sometimes writing is like this thing you feel like you have to do, and it's on your mind. You're like, I have to write this song. I know I have this concept for the song. I have to get it out, and you do everything to avoid it. Work on drums. Drums are fun. Sounds are fun. Things like that, But really, telling your story can be something that can just take you out of your day. Sometimes it's easier to go to lunch, but there's this thing in you that bugs you, and that's when you get real relief. Is when you do something that you think matters.
When something's on your mind and then you go away from it, but you can't really even fully relax because it's still on your mind. This song you have to complete or something like that.
Yeah, if there's something there, if you get an idea for a song, it'll come out one way or another. So it's like your job to be powerless and help get it to its best place.
I was going to ask you, I know you said a little bit a few minutes ago that you don't necessarily know what's next, but so I saw Steel Train in '09 at my really small college, which was really cool. Yeah, St. Bonaventure. It was a spring weekend, yeah, Western New York.
I remember that.
So to see you Steel Train play that, and then a couple years later, you're with Fun, you're at the Grammys, and then now a couple years later, now you're writing. You really changed what pop radio sounds like with your sound. So I was wondering, is there? And I know you really idolize Bruce Springsteen, and that's one of your heroes. Do you think there comes a point where you'd love to see yourself, for example, doing MetLife or something like that? Do you see that as a logical endpoint for your music?
I mean, I think the interesting thing about Bleachers is that the band has grown so much, and because I do other things, a lot of people have to understand it as some side thing, but then they come see us, and it's there's many thousands of people there. I grew up doing that. That's my whole upbringing, is playing in bands and just sort of being alone in a room and writing my own songs. So that is, I don't feel the need to slow either one down at the moment. I want Bleachers to continue on the path it's on, and I want to feel free to work on other things too.
Do you think you'd feel out of place if you ended up at MetLife, or do you think that would be not something you could own?
No, the interesting thing about Bleachers is sometimes the bigger the venue, the more sense it makes, because the songs are so grand. I love playing small venues too, but I don't have any of this disconnection stuff with big venues. I don't wear glasses on stage either way, so I can't see people. It's all a feeling. And I feel like when you're in a big venue, you're reaching at the person in the back, and that can be powerful.
Cool.
I love the VMA pre-show, because when I was a kid, I think it was the Boss Tones played on the marquee of Radio City. So it's always feels like kind of what's coming next. So it's very, very exciting for me. And I like the idea of playing on the red carpet, which is such a stiff environment, and just putting on our show and making it feel like a club.
Right on.